In this video, I want to explain why guided meditations can actually hold you back. I'm going to explain what I consider true meditation, why it's very different, and why long-term it's way more beneficial. Then I'll break down who guided meditations are good for, who should probably throw them in the waste bin, and if you're still set on using guided meditations, what kinds actually go deeper and which ones just keep you on the surface. Let's get started with how guided meditations can hold you back. To explain that, I want to tell you a story from about 20 years ago. I was 22 years old, traveling in Asia, and I got heat stroke in the rainforest. It was one of those situations where I probably should have died, but I somehow didn't. And that experience completely changed how I perceived the world and my body. Afterwards, I went to see an elderly woman who was known for helping with physical recovery. She taught me yoga, but not the kind of yoga most of us think of today. This wasn't modern yoga where you're flowing through 60 poses an hour, downward dog to plank to upward dog to the next thing. She had me do just 5 poses over 2 hours, and I had to sit in each pose, sometimes very unbearably, for like 20 minutes at a time. Normally, if you feel tight or uncomfortable in a yoga pose in a modern class, you just move right on, right? Next pose. You don't stay there. But here, I had no choice. I had to sit with all the tension in that one pose, and not just physically. I had to feel into why my body was holding the way it was. Those sessions were brutal while I was there. But immediately afterwards, I felt this tremendous progress. The 2 years I worked with her were some of the most transformative of my life. It taught me that yoga wasn't just about feeling good. It was about sitting with discomfort long enough that there was a forced dialogue between me and my body about what was really going on. Now, don't get me wrong. I like modern yoga too. It feels great. It's absolutely a good workout. There's absolutely value in it. But that old school yoga made a deep impression on me. Most guided meditations today are way more like the modern yoga than that old school approach. They're constant instructions, and those instructions keep you in motion just enough so uncomfortable stuff never gets fully felt. So the obvious question is, why do we even want to feel uncomfortable in meditation? Didn't I just sit down to meditate so I could relax, to feel better, to calm my anxiety or quiet my racing thoughts? I was already uncomfortable before I started meditating, right? So why would I want more of that? And I totally get that. But what I'm suggesting is that what you're really looking for, at least long term, is lasting relief from stress, anxiety, and mental noise. Now, maybe you're not. Maybe you just want short-term relief from some sort of surface level thing that's going on, stress. And if that's the case, guided meditations may make a lot of sense. They may be exactly what you're looking for. But let me show you why you might want to experiment with true meditation anyways. So think of your life like a garden. There are plants that you love, flowers, trees, bushes, and those could represent love, relationships, joy, meaning, good friends. But then there's also weeds, the plants you don't like, anxiety, stress, trauma, a racing mind. And if you want to tend this garden, you don't just want the weeds to look gone, you want them gone for good. You want them gone from the root. And to uproot weeds, you have to slow down. You have to dig. You have to get your hands dirty. In meditation, that digging happens when things arise and you sit with them in silence. You even give them a little love. You listen to what they're anxious about. And when they feel fully seen, they often uproot themselves naturally. But learning the difference between surface weeds and deep-rooted ones takes time, patience, and most importantly, stillness and silence. When you're following a guided meditation, you're often just sort of raking the surface. A breathing technique might remind you of how beautiful the garden is, and that can be very relaxing, even if the weeds are still there. But silence is like giant rays of sunlight are blasting onto the garden. Everything becomes obvious. Presence becomes deeper. Things become realer. And that can be intense. A lot of people say, I can't do silent meditation. My mind just races. And my response to that is, well, how do you know that's a problem? How do you know you're doing it wrong? Because see, when there's no guide, a lot more stuff is going to come up. And your meditation may start to feel a lot like your actual life. But why does this mean the meditation isn't working? In fact, some of the meditations people think were bad end up producing the most profound results later. So the issue usually isn't that you're bad at meditating, it's that your definition of correct meditation might be off. There's this belief that if your mind is quieter, you're meditating correctly, and if it's louder, you're failing. I would throw that belief out entirely. In true meditation, total silence, everything gets amplified, the good and the bad. The weeds may feel louder, but the beauty of the garden becomes brighter too. This is real meditation. And the reason you'd want to do this is because long term, it leads to lasting peace and change, not just temporary relief. When you keep adding external stimulus, the garden never gets fully experienced. Another byproduct of true meditation is that it improves the rest of your day. True meditation can feel more chaotic when you first start doing it. It might feel like you're way more distracted. But what's actually happening is that your system is learning how to relax naturally. By sitting with everything that normally comes up during the day without distracting yourself, you train your nervous system to relax on its own. So throughout the day, things soften automatically, even if the meditation itself felt messy. And honestly, that messiness is probably what your inner world already feels like all day. Now you're just getting comfortable with it. The chaos slowly learns to relax. Or to stick with the metaphor earlier, the weeds take care of themselves throughout the day. You end up logging way more meditation hours without even trying. We don't have to enjoy meditation for it to work, just like we don't have to enjoy going to the gym for it to benefit us tremendously. Now, guided meditations can have value when they're used correctly. The issue is that most guided meditations are very forceful, very heavy on instruction. Breathe here, focus there, visualize this, do that. Nothing wrong with that. These techniques can all be helpful, but deeper guided meditations tend to be more open-ended. They leave space. They ask questions rather than give you commands. They encourage you to find your own inner guide. They invite us to find our natural breath. If you want me to create that kind of guided meditation, by the way, just let me know in the comments. The second way guided meditations can be powerful is if they're used briefly at the beginning of a longer sit. Sometimes you just need a little nudge in order to get settled. And then once you're settled, the most powerful thing you can do is let whatever wants to arise, arise. This is especially useful when working with things you know are bothering you. And this aligns with how I often practice and recommend when you are dealing with difficult stuff. To start out the meditation, letting your awareness go very wide, bigger than your body, bigger than whatever's going on. And then from that space, we gently bring loving attention to what's bothering you. And so in that sense, the guided meditation at the beginning is just helping with the first part of that. As Ramana Maharshi said, you are meditation. Your truest guide is already inside you. But once you start practicing true meditation, more things may come up. More weeds may become visible. And if you want help navigating that, check out this next video. And thanks for being here.